You're a threat to toxic people. Not because you seek conflict, not because you want to hurt anyone, but because you've discovered a power they will never understand, the power of inner peace, self-mastery, and unshakable clarity. Toxic people feed on weakness, chaos, and reaction. When you rise above, when you stop giving them energy, when you refuse to play their game, they become powerless. They fear you not because you are loud, but because you are immovable. Today we explore 7 lessons from Buddhist wisdom that will make you untouchable, unshakable, and yes, a threat to toxicity itself. Recognize the illusion of their power. Toxic people thrive on one simple but devastating mechanism, convincing you that they hold power over you. They are skilled at creating chaos, weaving tension, and feeding off your reactions. They provoke you with words, gestures, or subtle manipulations designed to make you question your worth, your choices, and even your sanity. Every insult, every criticism, every underhanded remark is a calculated move meant to destabilize you. At first, it can feel like they really do hold power over your life, like they are the force that dictates your mood, your thoughts, and your actions. And if you are not careful, for a while, you might believe them. But here's the truth. Their power exists only in your response to them. The moment you stop giving them energy, mental, emotional, or even spiritual, the illusion shatters. Buddhism provides a framework for understanding why this works. At its core, Buddhism teaches that suffering arises not from external circumstances, but from attachment, desire, and identification with fleeting experiences. Toxic people exploit these very attachments. They know that if they can provoke anger, fear, or insecurity in you, they can control you. But if you learn to detach, to observe without being consumed, they are powerless. Detachment does not mean ignoring reality or pretending their actions don't affect you. It means understanding the nature of influence and choosing how much space to give it in your mind. When you realize that their approval is irrelevant, that their words carry no ultimate authority over your inner state, the so-called power they wield disappears. It is like a shadow on the wall, threatening only when you believe it is solid. Once you recognize it as a mere projection, its weight evaporates and you stand tall, unshaken. Imagine a toxic colleague at work who constantly criticizes you, undermines your ideas, and spreads rumors. Initially, you might feel anxious, defensive, and angry. You replay their words in your mind, analyze every slight, and even begin to doubt your own abilities. This is exactly what they want, to make you react and feed their sense of control. But the moment you step back and observe without judgment, you change the game entirely. You see their behavior as a reflection of their insecurity, their fear, and their own limitations, not as a measure of your worth. You no longer give them your energy. You do not engage in the fight they want you to fight. Their power was never real. It existed only in the space you allowed them to occupy in your mind. Observation is a powerful tool in this process. Buddhism calls it mindfulness, the act of seeing clearly, without distortion or attachment. When you practice observing toxic behavior without internalizing it, you create a mental distance that makes manipulation impossible. You are no longer reacting, you are witnessing. You can recognize their patterns, understand their tactics, and even predict their next move, all without letting it disrupt your peace. This awareness is not passive. It is an active reclaiming of your autonomy. You become the master of your mind rather than the victim of someone else's chaos. It is also essential to understand that toxic people thrive on uncertainty. They feed off the gap between who you are and how you respond to them. By responding with confusion, doubt, or fear, you hand them the weapon they need. But when you respond with calm observation and steady detachment, you deny them that weapon. Their anger, manipulation, or attempts to provoke lose their edge because your mind no longer reacts reflexively. You are like water flowing around a rock, unmoved, yet aware of every ripple. Another aspect of recognizing the illusion of their power is understanding that their behavior is rarely about you. Toxic people project their own fears, frustrations, and insecurities onto others. They are trapped in cycles of their own suffering and confusion, and they attempt to recruit you into it. Buddhism teaches that suffering is contagious only when we attach ourselves to it. When you refuse to engage, when you see their toxicity as a reflection of their inner chaos rather than your own failing, you protect yourself. You observe without absorbing, and this is where true freedom lies. Lastly, recognizing the illusion of their power is about reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. Every time a toxic person provokes a reaction from you, they temporarily hijack your energy, focus, and clarity. But once you see their power as illusory, you take it back. You learn to respond deliberately rather than react impulsively. You learn to choose which battles are worth fighting and which are better left to silence and observation. Your calm becomes a shield, your awareness becomes a weapon, and your independence becomes unassailable. In essence, toxic people are terrifying not because they are inherently powerful, but because they try to convince you that they are. Buddhism gives us the tools to see through this illusion. It teaches that external circumstances cannot disturb the mind that is free from attachment. The moment you internalize this truth, you are no longer vulnerable. You are no longer the puppet they attempt to control. You are the observer, the master, the unshakable presence that no amount of provocation can move. And when you operate from this place, their so-called power is revealed for what it really is: smoke and mirrors, unable to touch the foundation of your inner peace. By recognizing the illusion of their power, you rise above fear, manipulation, and chaos. You step into a space of clarity and control that toxic people cannot penetrate. And in this space you discover something far more powerful than their influence: the unwavering strength of your own mind, free from attachment, free from fear, and untouchable. Master your mind before you master the world. Toxic people are dangerous, not because of what they say or do, but because they exploit the storm inside your mind. The chaos, the doubts, the insecurities, and the emotional reactions, they are all weapons in the hands of someone who thrives on control and manipulation. Most people try to fight them externally, focusing on changing circumstances, confronting words, or winning arguments. But Buddhist wisdom teaches something deeper. You cannot truly rise above toxicity until you first master the battlefield within yourself. The external world is only as threatening as your mind allows it to be. Mastering the mind is not about suppressing emotions or pretending nothing affects you. That is a common misconception. True mastery is about awareness, discipline, and the deliberate choice of where you place your attention. Your mind is like a wild horse, powerful, energetic, and often unpredictable. If left untamed, it can carry you directly into the traps that toxic people lay. You react impulsively, say things you regret, or allow fear and anger to dominate your behavior. This is exactly what they want. But when you learn to observe your thoughts, to notice them without being consumed, the horse can be guided with clarity, purpose, and control. You begin to lead your mind rather than being led by it. Meditation is one of the most practical and powerful tools for this mastery. Sitting quietly, focusing on the breath, and observing the flow of thoughts may seem simple, but it builds a skill that becomes unstoppable in real life: the ability to pause before reacting. When a toxic person tries to provoke you, your first response is no longer automatic. You have created a space, a mental gap, between stimulus and response. In that space you decide how to act. If at all, you may choose silence, a measured response, or simply walking away. Each time you exercise this choice, you reclaim control, and each act strengthens your mind against manipulation. Mastering your mind also requires understanding the illusions of attachment. Most people react to toxicity because they are attached to outcomes, respect, approval, validation, or winning. Toxic people know this and exploit it. They twist words, create tension, and provoke reactions because they understand that attachment is a vulnerability. Buddhism teaches that desire and clinging are the roots of suffering. When you detach from the need for external validation, the attacks of toxic people lose their edge. You can maintain your integrity, stay calm, and act according to your principles without being drawn into their chaos. Visualization and reflection are additional methods to strengthen mental mastery. Picture yourself in a situation with a toxic person. See their provocations clearly, but also see yourself responding with calm, measured awareness. Imagine the panic or anger rising within you, and then imagine letting it dissolve like mist. This practice trains your mind to respond in reality exactly as you envision, building confidence and mental resilience. Reflection after encounters is equally important. Examine how you felt, what triggered you, and what choice could have led to calm rather than reaction. Each moment of awareness compounds into greater control over your mental state. Another critical element of mastering the mind is understanding impermanence. Buddhism teaches that all thoughts, emotions, and experiences are transient. Toxic words, provocations, and chaos are temporary, passing clouds in the sky of your consciousness. When you internalize this truth, the storms others try to create in your mind lose their permanence and intensity. You see them as fleeting events, not threats to your inner stability. Your mind becomes the stable ground beneath passing waves, unshaken and unwavering. A mind that is mastered also creates clarity in decision-making. Toxic people rely on confusion, self-doubt, and emotional turbulence to maintain control. They provoke reactions to cloud your judgment, but when your mind is disciplined, you see the patterns of their behavior, understand the motives behind their actions, and make deliberate choices. You no longer respond blindly or impulsively. Instead, every response is purposeful, guided by clarity rather than emotion. This is a level of power toxic people cannot understand or tolerate. They operate in chaos, but you operate from deliberate calm. Finally, mastering the mind is not a one-time achievement. It is a lifelong practice. Every encounter, every thought, every challenge is an opportunity to strengthen your awareness. When you consistently train your mind to observe, pause, detach, and act with purpose, you build an unshakable inner fortress. Toxic people may attempt to provoke, manipulate, or control, but they cannot penetrate a mind that has been trained to see clearly, respond deliberately, and remain centered under any circumstances. Your calm is not passive. It is a force. Your awareness is not fragile. It is a shield. And your deliberate presence is a power they cannot touch. In essence, mastering your mind before trying to master the world is the ultimate preparation for rising above toxicity. It is the internal armor that protects you from external chaos. It is the quiet strength that turns observation into power. And it is the principle that allows you to face even the most skilled manipulators without fear, without reaction, and without compromise of your peace. Toxic people are dangerous only to the reactive mind. The disciplined, aware, and detached mind sees them clearly, refuses to engage, and stands unshakable, untouchable, and fully in control. When you master your mind, you do more than survive interactions with toxicity. You transcend them. You step into a state of presence where their provocations cannot penetrate, where their chaos cannot disturb, and where your own clarity and power become undeniable. And it is in this space that you begin to rise not just above toxicity, but above the limitations that others, circumstances, and even your own untrained mind once imposed. Detach without hatred. Rising above toxic people is not about fighting fire with fire, and it is certainly not about responding with anger. One of the most dangerous traps you can fall into is the belief that hatred or resentment will protect you or give you strength. On the contrary, these emotions chain you to the very toxicity you are trying to escape. Buddhist teachings are clear on this point. Attachment, including attachment to anger, judgment, or revenge, is the source of suffering. When you hold on to hatred, you remain entangled in the energy of the person who triggered it. You are no longer free. You are a prisoner of your own reaction. Detachment does not mean ignoring injustice or tolerating harm. It does not mean passivity or weakness. True detachment is conscious, deliberate, and strategic. It is the ability to engage with the world, to defend yourself, and to assert your boundaries, all without allowing the negativity of others to penetrate your inner peace. A detached person does not absorb insults, does not take criticism personally, and does not react reflexively to provocation. Instead, they see the behavior for what it is, a reflection of the other person's fears, insecurities, and ignorance, not a measure of their own worth. Consider a situation where a toxic person spreads rumors about you. The natural reaction is anger, frustration, or the urge to retaliate. But detachment teaches you to pause, to recognize the source of the behavior, and to consciously choose not to let it disturb your calm. You acknowledge the reality. They have said or done something negative, but you do not give it energy. You refuse to feed the narrative they are trying to create. Your peace remains intact, and in that choice you exercise power far greater than any reactive response could provide. Detachment also involves understanding impermanence. Nothing outside your mind has lasting control over you. Words fade, actions pass, and people move on. But your state of awareness can remain steady. When you internalize this principle, hatred becomes meaningless. Holding grudges or ruminating on the harm caused only prolongs your suffering. Buddhism teaches that by letting go, you reclaim the energy you were unconsciously surrendering. The more you detach from toxic behavior without hatred, the more energy you have to grow, to focus on meaningful goals, and to cultivate the inner strength that no one can take from you. Another essential part of detachment is seeing toxic behavior as a projection. People who are cruel, manipulative, or vindictive are usually reflecting their own pain, fear, and insecurity. When someone attacks you, it is rarely about you. It is about the chaos they carry within themselves. By recognizing this, you reduce the emotional charge behind their actions. You stop personalizing their negativity. Detachment without hatred is the art of seeing clearly, responding wisely, and refusing to allow another person's inner turmoil to dictate your emotional state. Detachment also enhances your ability to act strategically. When you react with anger or hatred, your judgment becomes clouded. You may lash out, make impulsive decisions, or escalate a situation unnecessarily. But when you detach, you respond from a place of clarity and purpose. Boundaries can be enforced without rage. Consequences can be applied without vengeance. You maintain control over the situation, and the toxic person cannot manipulate your behavior. Their attempts to provoke become ineffective because you operate from awareness, not reaction. Compassion and detachment are closely linked. Buddhism teaches that understanding the suffering of others, even those who hurt you, is a path to liberation. Compassion here is not about excusing their behavior or tolerating harm. It is about recognizing the human flaws that drive toxic behavior and refusing to internalize them. You maintain your peace because you see their actions through the lens of clarity rather than emotional entanglement. Detachment without hatred allows you to act with integrity, enforce your boundaries, and maintain your dignity, all while refusing to carry the weight of resentment or anger. Finally, detachment without hatred is the ultimate protection. Toxic people thrive on reactions, drama, and emotional energy. The more they provoke you, the more power they feel they have. But when you respond with calm awareness, refusing to absorb their negativity, they lose the ability to control you. Their power exists only in the space you allow them to occupy in your mind. Detachment dissolves that space. Hatred, resentment, and revenge are the chains that keep you trapped. Detachment is the key that sets you free. In essence, detachment without hatred is not just a strategy against toxic people. It is a fundamental principle of inner freedom. You protect your energy, maintain your clarity, and assert your boundaries without becoming what you resist. You rise above, not through aggression, but through self-mastery. You become untouchable because your inner state is independent of external chaos. You are no longer reacting to others. You are responding from awareness, integrity, and strength. Toxic people may rage, manipulate, and attempt to provoke, but their efforts are powerless against a mind that is detached, calm, and unshakable. When you detach without hatred, you are not cold, you are liberated. You are not passive. You are deliberate. You are not weak. You are more powerful than anyone who relies on chaos, anger, or manipulation. And in this state, you are no longer vulnerable to toxic influence. You are free. You are steady. You are untouchable. Set boundaries like the laws of nature. One of the most misunderstood truths about dealing with toxic people is this: boundaries are not optional. They are essential. Toxic individuals respect nothing. Until limits are enforced consistently and without hesitation, they will push, provoke, and manipulate until someone finally draws a line. And often they will test that line repeatedly to see if it will hold. In Buddhism, mindful action is deliberate, conscious, and grounded in awareness. Setting boundaries is not about punishment or confrontation. It is about protecting your energy, your peace, and your integrity in a world that often rewards chaos and drama. Boundaries are not a reflection of anger or aggression. They are a declaration of self-respect. When you enforce limits calmly and consistently, you communicate that your inner peace is non-negotiable. Just as the laws of nature cannot be violated without consequences, gravity will pull, the sun will rise, water will flow. Your boundaries function in the same way. If someone oversteps, there will be a natural consequence. If you allow them to cross repeatedly without response, the boundary loses meaning. Toxic people test limits because they sense weakness, hesitation, or inconsistency. The moment you respond deliberately, they understand that your space is inviolable, and their power over you diminishes. Consider a toxic friend or colleague who constantly interrupts your time, criticizes your work, or takes advantage of your generosity. Initially, it may feel uncomfortable to confront them. You might fear conflict, feel guilty, or worry about how they will react. But avoiding boundaries comes at a higher cost. Each time you allow your limits to be crossed, you surrender a piece of your mental and emotional sovereignty. Mindful boundary setting, on the other hand, is an act of strength, clarity, and self-respect. It is not reactive. It is not punitive. It is deliberate and rooted in awareness of your own needs and values. Setting boundaries also requires consistency. One-off responses will not work. Toxic people thrive on inconsistency. If you occasionally enforce a boundary, but fail to do so at other times, they learn to push until they find a crack. Consistency transforms boundaries into laws. When someone repeatedly crosses a line, The consequence is applied without hesitation or drama. This is not about revenge. It is about alignment with your principles. You are teaching the world and yourself that your peace and well-being are not negotiable commodities. Boundaries are also a form of communication. They clearly convey what is acceptable and what is not. When enforced mindfully, boundaries leave no room for misinterpretation. You do not need to argue, explain endlessly, or justify your limits. The line is clear. This is your space, this is your energy, and it will not be violated. Toxic people understand power, not reasoning. They may attempt to rationalize, manipulate, or guilt you into bending, but the clarity of your boundaries creates a natural deterrent they cannot overcome. An important part of setting boundaries is detachment from others' reactions. Toxic individuals will often attempt to provoke guilt, shame, or fear when you enforce limits. They may argue, sulk, or lash out in subtle ways. Detachment allows you to maintain your calm and act according to principle rather than emotion. You are enforcing boundaries not to punish, control, or manipulate in return. You are enforcing them because it is necessary for your mental and emotional survival. Their reactions are theirs to manage, not yours to absorb. Boundaries are also deeply linked with self-awareness. Before you can set effective limits, you must understand your own needs, priorities, and thresholds. Buddhism emphasizes self-knowledge as the foundation of wisdom. If you do not know where your line lies, if you are unclear about your values, you cannot enforce boundaries consistently. Awareness of your own limits allows you to act decisively when they are threatened. Without this clarity, you risk overextending yourself, tolerating behavior that erodes your peace, or reacting impulsively in ways that compromise your integrity. Finally, boundaries create freedom. They are not walls meant to isolate you or push people away. Instead, they define the space in which you can exist fully, calmly, and intentionally. They allow you to engage with the world without fear of exploitation or manipulation. When toxic people encounter boundaries that are firm, consistent, and detached, they cannot maintain control over you. Their attempts to dominate or provoke are neutralized because your limits are as natural and unbreakable as the laws of nature themselves. In essence, setting boundaries, like the laws of nature, transforms how you exist in the world. It is not an act of aggression, anger, or control. It is an act of conscious power. It is a declaration that your peace, your energy, and your mind are sacred, and nothing external has the authority to violate them. Toxic people may try, they may test, and they may push. But when boundaries are clear, consistent, and rooted in awareness, they become powerless. Your calm becomes unshakable, your space becomes inviolable, and your presence becomes a force that cannot be manipulated or diminished. When boundaries are enforced with mindfulness, consistency, and detachment, toxic people recognize, consciously or unconsciously, that you are untouchable. You are no longer an available target for manipulation, control, or provocation. You have aligned your actions with your inner truth, creating a natural protection that no external chaos can penetrate. Boundaries, like gravity, are immutable. They are not negotiated, they are not questioned, and they are not broken. They simply exist, and in their existence you rise above toxicity, chaos, and manipulation, untouchable and undeniably strong. Practice compassion strategically. Many people misunderstand the concept of compassion, especially when dealing with toxic individuals. They think compassion means weakness, forgiveness, without boundaries, or tolerance of repeated harm. This is a misconception, and it is precisely what toxic people hope you will believe. In reality, strategic compassion is one of the most powerful tools you can wield against toxicity. It is not passive, it is not naive. It is deliberate, intelligent, and rooted in clarity. Compassion allows you to understand the source of toxicity without absorbing its energy, to respond without reaction, and to maintain your peace while others flail in chaos. To understand why compassion is so effective, it is essential to recognize that toxic behavior is almost always a reflection of inner suffering. People who manipulate, provoke, or attack often do so from fear, insecurity, or unresolved pain. They are trapped in patterns of self-destruction, projecting their inner chaos onto the world around them. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment, ignorance, and misperception. When you see a toxic person through this lens, you begin to recognize that their actions are not about you, they are about the pain they carry. This perspective shifts your energy from reaction to awareness. You are no longer a target to be hit. You are an observer of a person trapped in their own storm. Strategic compassion means maintaining empathy without surrendering your power. You acknowledge their suffering without letting it dictate your emotional state. You can feel their fear or recognize their insecurity, yet still enforce boundaries firmly and calmly. This balance is crucial. Toxic people often attempt to manipulate by evoking guilt or shame, trying to make you feel responsible for their emotional state. Compassion allows you to see through these tactics. You can understand their behavior without internalizing it. You can maintain clarity while holding space for their humanity, and in doing so you neutralize their ability to control or provoke you. Another reason strategic compassion is powerful is that it disrupts the cycle of escalation. Toxic people thrive on conflict, chaos, and reactive energy. When you respond with anger, defensiveness, or hatred, you feed the very fire they want to ignite. Compassion interrupts this pattern. By responding with calm, detached awareness, even when you are firm, you deprive them of the drama that fuels their influence. Your response is measured, intentional, and unassailable. They may attempt to bait you, but they cannot create chaos in a mind that is anchored in compassion, awareness, and clarity. Compassion also strengthens your perspective. When you understand that toxic people act from fear, insecurity, or past trauma, you reduce the personal charge of their attacks. Their words are no longer absolute truths about your character or worth. They are distortions born of their inner struggle. Buddhism teaches that understanding the nature of suffering in others fosters clarity and freedom. You begin to see patterns, motives, and weaknesses without judgment. This awareness gives you an advantage. You can act strategically, respond consciously, and protect your peace without becoming entangled in their chaos. Furthermore, strategic compassion enhances your ability to maintain long-term boundaries. When boundaries are enforced without hatred and combined with understanding, the person on the receiving end may become more aware of their own destructive behavior. While the goal is never to fix or change them, compassion can create space for reflection, which reduces the intensity of their attacks. You enforce consequences without malice, and in doing so you maintain integrity while allowing them to confront their behavior if they choose. Compassion does not weaken the boundary. It strengthens it because your actions are rooted in principle rather than reaction. It is also important to recognize that compassion is not about ignoring harm. Strategic compassion is active, not passive. You may still remove yourself from harmful situations, say no firmly, and refuse engagement when necessary. The difference is that you do these things without hatred or resentment. The energy you preserve by avoiding reactive anger is redirected toward growth, self-mastery, and constructive action. Toxic people cannot influence a mind that is grounded in strategic compassion. They cannot provoke what does not exist, and they cannot control what is centered in clarity. In practice, compassion can take many forms. It can be as simple as pausing before responding to a provocation, acknowledging the other person's humanity without absorbing their negativity, or quietly observing their behavior without judgment. It can mean enforcing consequences for harmful actions without lashing out. It can mean choosing to disengage when a situation is unproductive, while maintaining clarity that your response is deliberate, not reactive. Each act of strategic compassion builds inner strength, reinforces your boundaries, and diminishes the toxic person's influence. Ultimately, practicing compassion strategically transforms how you engage with toxic people and life itself. It creates a space where your mind remains unshakable, where your energy cannot be hijacked, and where your reactions are deliberate rather than chaotic. Toxic people thrive on manipulation, fear, and emotional chaos. But compassion cuts through all of that. It allows you to maintain integrity while navigating conflict. It lets you rise above provocation without surrendering your power. And most importantly, it creates a mental and emotional state that toxic people cannot touch. When compassion is practiced strategically, it is not weakness. It is mastery. It is not tolerance. It is intelligence. It is not passivity. It is deliberate, conscious, and profoundly powerful. Toxic people may try to provoke, manipulate, or intimidate, but they cannot penetrate a mind grounded in strategic compassion. You remain calm when they rage, clear when they deceive, and steady when they attempt chaos. Your peace becomes your shield, your awareness becomes your weapon, and your compassion becomes the silent force that makes you untouchable. In the end, strategic compassion is a demonstration of ultimate power, the power to see clearly, respond deliberately, maintain inner peace, and rise above the toxicity that surrounds you. By practicing compassion strategically, you no longer fight the toxic person on their terms. You transcend the battlefield entirely. You are untouchable, unshakable, and undeniably strong, not through anger, aggression, or retaliation, but through clarity, awareness, and the mindful practice of compassion that protects you while neutralizing the influence of toxicity. Control your energy, not their words. Toxic people are masters of stealing energy. They may not have physical weapons, but their words, tone, and presence are designed to drain you, provoke you, and manipulate your mind. They feed on attention, reaction, and emotional chaos. Most people make the critical mistake of giving them exactly what they want: a reaction. The more you respond with anger, frustration, or defensiveness, the more energy you surrender and the more power you hand to them. Buddhism teaches that attachment and identification are the roots of suffering. When you attach yourself to someone else's words or let them dictate your mood, you become a prisoner of their manipulation. Controlling your energy rather than reacting to their words is the path to freedom. Controlling your energy begins with awareness. You must first notice when someone is attempting to provoke or manipulate you. Toxic words are often designed to bypass rational thought and trigger an immediate emotional response: anger, guilt, fear, or shame. The first step is pausing. Take a moment to observe the emotion rising within you. Notice the physical sensations, the tension in your chest, the heat in your face, the urge to lash out or defend yourself. By simply observing, without acting, you create a gap, a space where choice exists. This is the moment where your energy can be preserved rather than wasted. Once you recognize the provocation, you can consciously decide how to respond. The key principle here is that words have power only if you give them power. Toxic people understand that most people will instinctively react. They know that an angry reply, a defensive justification, or even silent resentment is a transfer of energy from you to them. When you refuse to participate in that transfer, you take back control. Your calm, measured response, or even deliberate silence, becomes a statement of authority that they cannot penetrate. You are no longer giving them leverage over your emotions. Controlling your energy also requires detachment from outcomes. Often, Toxic people provoke by threatening something you value, your reputation, relationships, or position. They know that fear of loss can compel reaction. Buddhism teaches that attachment to outcomes is a root cause of suffering. When you release the need to control every outcome and recognize that your inner state is independent of their words, you stop feeding the fire. Your energy becomes self-contained. You are not reacting to their threats or manipulations because you are grounded in your own clarity and strength. Their attempts to manipulate lose their effect. Another crucial aspect of energy control is understanding boundaries, not just physical or external, but mental and emotional. You can choose what you allow into your mind. Toxic people may speak, shout, or criticize, but you decide what enters your consciousness and how long it stays there. A comment that might trigger someone else's anxiety can pass through you like air, noticed, processed, and released. You conserve energy by refusing to internalize what is not yours. This is not ignoring reality, it is choosing which aspects of reality deserve your attention and which do not. Meditative awareness and mindfulness are powerful tools for maintaining this control. Daily practice trains your mind to pause, observe, and respond with intention rather than impulse. In the heat of a toxic interaction, these skills allow you to maintain composure, neutralize manipulation, and act from a place of clarity. Every moment you choose to respond consciously rather than react unconsciously, you reclaim energy that would otherwise be lost. Over time, this becomes a habit, a natural state of being, and toxic people begin to lose their influence because they can no longer provoke you. Energy control is also about recognizing your triggers. Everyone has vulnerabilities that toxic people can exploit. Fear of rejection, desire for approval, insecurity, or guilt. Buddhism emphasizes self-knowledge as a key to liberation. By identifying the situations, words, and behaviors that trigger a strong reaction, you gain the ability to anticipate them and prepare yourself mentally. This preparation allows you to engage from a place of composure and awareness, rather than falling prey to reflexive responses. The more you understand your triggers, the less power others have over you, and the more your energy remains yours. Finally, controlling your energy means committing to internal sovereignty. External circumstances, opinions, and manipulations will always exist, but your energy is yours alone. You decide how it flows, where it goes, and what affects it. Toxic people may shout, manipulate, or threaten, but their words can only impact you if you allow them. Buddhism teaches that freedom is found not in controlling the world, but in controlling the mind. When you master your energy, you are untouchable. Your calm becomes a shield. Your focus becomes a weapon. And your presence becomes a force that cannot be hijacked, distracted, or drained by anyone else. In practice, controlling your energy transforms every interaction. A toxic boss, colleague, family member, or friend may continue their attempts to provoke, but they no longer achieve results. You respond with awareness, composure, and deliberate action. Their words bounce off your mind like water off a lotus leaf, leaving no residue, no agitation, and no chaos. You conserve energy for growth, clarity, and purposeful action, while they remain trapped in their own reactive cycle. When you control your energy rather than reacting to others' words, you rise above manipulation, drama, and chaos. Toxic people may speak, shout, or scheme, but their power over you is gone. You are calm when they rage, clear when they deceive, and steady when they provoke. This is not a passive state. It is active mastery. It is deliberate, strategic, and profoundly powerful. Your energy becomes your fortress, and no toxic person can breach it. You are untouchable, unshakable, and free, because you have learned the most important lesson of all: control your energy, not their words. Live with purpose beyond their shadows. The final lesson in rising above toxicity is perhaps the most powerful of all: to live with purpose beyond their shadows. Toxic people thrive on distraction, chaos, and control. They attempt to dominate your life, not just through words or actions, but by drawing your focus away from what truly matters. Every provocation, every criticism, and every attempt to manipulate is an effort to pull you into their orbit, to make you live in reaction rather than intention. Buddhism teaches that clarity of purpose and alignment with one's values are the foundations of liberation. When your life is guided by purpose, their influence becomes irrelevant. Their shadows no longer reach you. Living with purpose begins with identifying what truly matters to you. This is not about goals dictated by societal expectations, peer pressure, or fleeting desires. True purpose is rooted in your deepest values, your unique strengths, and the life you are meant to lead. It is the quiet compass that directs your choices and actions, even in the face of chaos or provocation. When you have a clear sense of purpose, toxic people can no longer define your direction, manipulate your choices, or distract you from what is meaningful. They may still attempt to intrude, but their impact is limited because your energy is invested in something far larger than their petty manipulations. Purpose also gives your life resilience. Toxic behavior often aims to create fear, doubt, or despair. People may try to intimidate you, belittle your efforts, or make you feel isolated. But when your actions are aligned with purpose, external attacks are powerless to destabilize you. You know why you are doing what you are doing. You are committed to a path, a vision, or a goal that is independent of approval or recognition from others. This clarity of intention transforms every interaction. Toxic people can rage, deceive, or provoke, but they cannot derail a mind and heart rooted in purpose. Another essential aspect of living beyond their shadows is focusing on growth rather than reaction. Toxic people feed on your emotional response. They are like a storm that gains strength from the turbulence it creates. Purpose allows you to redirect that energy. Instead of responding to manipulation with anger, fear, or despair, you channel your focus toward learning, building, and improving. Your energy becomes constructive rather than reactive. In Buddhism, this is the essence of mindful action, acting from awareness and intention, not impulse. By concentrating on your growth, development, and alignment with your values, you remove the fuel that toxic individuals rely on to influence you. Living with purpose also demands courage. It is easier to fall into distraction, to get caught in the drama of others, or to compromise your priorities for short-term comfort. But rising above toxicity requires discipline and bravery. It requires looking clearly at your life, identifying what is meaningful, and refusing to let anyone steer you away from that path. The courage to live intentionally, rather than reactively, is a direct challenge to toxic people. It is a demonstration that their attempts to control or manipulate you have no power over the life you have chosen to lead. Purpose provides clarity in relationships as well. When you understand your priorities, values, and limits, you can make conscious decisions about who to allow into your life. Toxic individuals often thrive on proximity. They seek to influence, provoke, or control by being present. By focusing on purpose, you naturally gravitate toward people, environments, and activities that support your growth, peace, and well-being, while avoiding or minimizing exposure to those who drain or destabilize you. Living with purpose becomes both a compass and a protective shield, guiding you toward positivity while keeping toxicity at a distance. Another profound effect of living with purpose is the cultivation of inner peace. Purpose provides meaning beyond the chaos others create. It gives your mind a center, your heart a direction, and your spirit a foundation. Toxic people may attempt to provoke, distract, or unsettle you, But when you operate from purpose, their actions feel like static on a clear signal. They can no longer invade your mental space, manipulate your decisions, or disturb your sense of self. Purpose anchors you in a state of calm, clarity, and resilience that cannot be shaken by external manipulation. Finally, living with purpose turns every interaction with toxicity into a lesson, an opportunity, or a reflection. When you rise above their shadows, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a conscious observer, a master of your own path, and a force guided by vision rather than reaction. Toxic people may rage, manipulate, or attempt to control, but their shadows only highlight the light of your clarity, determination, and intentional living. In this state, you are untouchable. You are unshakable. You are operating from a level of awareness and alignment that cannot be influenced or intimidated. When you live beyond their shadows, toxic people no longer define your life. Their presence becomes background noise, irrelevant to your decisions, irrelevant to your peace, and irrelevant to your growth. You are guided by your own internal compass, acting with clarity, courage, and conscious intention. You rise above manipulation, drama, and chaos, not through confrontation, anger, or force, but through alignment with your true purpose. Your life becomes an unassailable fortress, a path illuminated by meaning, and a presence so powerful that toxicity cannot survive in its light. Ultimately, living with purpose beyond their shadows is the culmination of all the lessons you have learned, the mastery of your mind, the enforcement of boundaries, the practice of strategic compassion, and the control of your energy. Purpose ties everything together, giving direction to your awareness, strength to your calm, and permanence to your peace. Toxic people may attempt to influence the world around you, but they cannot touch the life you have deliberately chosen to lead. Your purpose is your armor, your anchor, and your power. It ensures that you rise above, remain unshakable, and live a life that is entirely your own, free from the shadows of those who seek to control or diminish you. You have now learned the 7 steps to rising above toxicity and becoming untouchable, unshakable, and undeniably powerful. You have seen that toxic people are only as strong as the reaction you give them. You have learned to recognize the illusion of their power, to master your mind before trying to master the world, to detach without hatred, to enforce boundaries like the laws of nature, to practice compassion strategically, to control your energy rather than their words, and finally, to live with purpose beyond their shadows. None of these lessons are theoretical. Each one is a tool, a practice, and a mindset you can apply every day. Toxic people will continue to exist. They will provoke, manipulate, and attempt to destabilize, but their influence over you ends where your awareness, discipline, and purpose begin. When you rise above, you become a presence they cannot touch. You do not fight them on their terms. You do not give them the energy they crave. You simply exist in clarity, calm, and strength. And in doing so, you reveal the ultimate truth. Their chaos has no hold over the life you choose to lead. This is not about power over others. It is about power over yourself. It is about reclaiming your mind, your peace, and your energy. It is about stepping into a life that is intentional, focused, and aligned with your values, rather than being dragged into conflict, manipulation, or distraction. When you live this way, you become more than a survivor. You become a force of presence, a light in the chaos, and a reflection of what it truly means to rise above. So rise. Master your mind. Protect your energy. Hold your boundaries. Practice compassion without surrender. Live with purpose, so vivid and clear that nothing toxic can dim it. Toxic people may try to cast shadows, but you walk in light. They may attempt to provoke, but you remain calm. They may manipulate, but your clarity cannot be touched. You are untouchable. You are unshakable. You are free. The real power is not in what they fear you can do. It is in what they cannot take from you. Your peace, your clarity, your purpose, and your unwavering presence. Stand tall, step forward, rise above, and let them see that nothing they do can control the life of someone who has mastered themselves.